Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. We're excited to get with our guest today. Our first question, as always, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Catherine Brown, and I'm the founder of the Extra Bold Sales System. That means that I am a corporate sales trainer, and I serve all kinds of business-to-business sales teams. My expertise is really primarily with high-end professional services and high tech. That makes up a very large percent of my clients.
Fantastic. Well, question number 2, what is the best thing about working with a team?
Well, I like this question a lot because I have a fairly small team. I would call my current company an adolescent company. I started it 3 years ago, and so we're still building and growing our offerings, but I have the same internal administration team that I had with a former business that I had. So for me, one of the best things about a team has actually been learning together. I think we have a really neat dynamic in that I'm the boss and the buck stops with me, and they know that, but we have so much trust built up from working together for working together for years. And so I feel like I can learn and make mistakes also. And I think it's important that the person, even who's the boss, feels that way. And I feel that way.
I think that's fantastic. And you used such an important word, trust, how
Mhm.
critical it is to have that trust. I agree that when you have a really good trusting team, that's not something to let go of anytime soon.
I
So,
know, I feel really fortunate. Every year that goes by, I still have all of them. I think, I'm so glad you didn't go work for somebody else. So nobody poached them. No, I'm just kidding. They're awesome. They're awesome.
fair enough. Question number 3. I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell me your thoughts.
Well, what's interesting is that my management team, we actually all used to live in the same place, but over a series of different spousal transfers and different reasons, we are now distributed across 4 states. So we're completely virtual and have been virtual even prior to all of our drama with COVID. So I give it kind of a mixed review. I have had cases where we have been together, and I think the in-person benefit of the water cooler time and literally sitting across face to face is definitely preferable. I mean, it's definitely preferable, but I feel like we've been able to make it work. And so I have employed a lot of tools. I think you're going to ask me about that in a future question, but we figured out a lot of tools and systems to make it go okay. And I give us a B. I think it's going okay.
Well, that's fantastic. Because I'm concerned that there are a lot of companies out there that might be faring not too well, but you're
Mm-hmm.
obviously doing a great job, and that trust obviously goes a long way, so that
Mm-hmm.
helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 4, what other piece of advice do you have for leaders of teams?
So I'll use this to talk about the tools that have helped us, because I do think so many people are having to be virtual right now that maybe have not originated that way. So a few things that have been a game changer for us. Number one, we use an app called Voxer, and I don't have any product endorsements from any of these, John. These are just, me sharing what's worked for us, but it's kind of like WhatsApp. It's like a walkie-talkie. And I have my phone right here. Of course, it's turned down for the call, but we have messages that are in groups and individuals, and we talk all day long through our app. So I actually have a stand-up meeting every morning that's for 15 minutes on Zoom, just like we're here now. And then we all go do our own thing. We basically go to our own corner in our own state, but we can reach each other all day back and forth through these messages, and they're verbal. That has been amazing for us. That's something we started in 2020. Our other big thing we did starting in 2020 was we took all internal email to Slack. And so basically, if you were to go look in my email box right now, it's clients, vendors, solicitations, and email marketing I receive from other people. But there's nothing from people who report to me. That is in Slack, and we have a real firm commitment to do that. And that keeps us organized. If you're familiar with that, it means you have all these channels, and we're constantly creating new channels and retiring other ones. But I can't tell you what it's done to streamline the level of communication, because since we're virtual and we're busy and we're building businesses and growing, I was overcome when I sent everything to my email. So now we have some things going to verbal through our Voxer app and some things going to Slack. It's been pretty game changing for us.
Thank you so much for those suggestions. I've heard of Slack. I should say I've heard it. I've used it.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly is. It is a game changer in that. But I appreciate those recommendations for the others, because that really does make a big difference when you can use tools effectively and not let it become a burden. And it sounds like you guys really nailed it. So nice.
We have some other things we've tried that we've retired, right? It doesn't all work for you. And some people are real big Microsoft shops, so they use Teams. Like there can be certainly alternatives, but we're a Google shop. That's just kind of, we run everything on Google Business. And so we didn't have to use Teams, and we chose Slack, and it's been great.
Well, great. I'm glad to hear that. Question number 5, what other successful leaders of teams would you like to recognize that have had a positive influence in your life?
Oh, goodness sakes. Well, I would say my very first job was as a high-tech recruiter. And I had a great boss that was really super at training and helping people with professional development and motivating them. That manager's name was Jeff Lusk, Lusk. And so he was like, just as a guru recruiter, and taught me everything I know that I then took to sales. I also had an inside sales manager. So a former business I had was cold calling, and other firms would hire me and hire my people, like a temp agency where we would be on contract to solicit business for other companies. That is a very specific expertise. And I have he's still a friend today, Duke Napoleon, who's a friend of mine, who was the manager of our group. And he was masterful and is a masterful salesperson, but also just such a nice and supportive friend. So I would say both of them were people who were happy to pour into you, invest in you, good communicators. And then in both cases, I actually ended up going a different direction eventually. And in some of the cases, there was a promotion for me to leave their group, and that was okay too.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for recognizing them. They sound like fantastic individuals that clearly have helped shape what kind of a leader you've become. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question. Tell us about your first job.
I love this question because I worked for my uncle's funeral home.
Oh, wow. That's a first.
I know it's my first. So how many high schoolers do you know that work in a funeral home? But he had a family business. It's since sold to a major chain, and he had a wonderful, successful buyout. And that's a wonderful story too. But it was just a little family-owned business in a suburb. I grew up in Texas, in the suburb of San Antonio. And this is long enough ago that we were typing the death certificates on the typewriter, and you would hand deliver a lot of things. And his office had an early fax machine. I mean, this is far enough back that there was a lot of administrative stuff, which I'm sure now is automated with software packages and things like that, but it was done manually. And I really learned so much about the industry, and I joke about it, but it's really very serious. If you've ever lost someone, to have someone who is a very good funeral director, who's a great salesperson, not too pushy, but also highly empathetic and very professional. It's really important service. So I learned a ton, and I went ahead and put that on my LinkedIn profile, because every once in a while someone says, I worked at a funeral home too, because it's so unusual.
It is. Yeah, that really, I've been to funerals, and so I always respect those individuals that are in charge, you might say, of the services, and just how professional.
It's a big job. It's important that it be done well,
Oh yeah, that's impressive. Wow, good for you. I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, I'm grateful because everyone needs an uncle to give them their first job. So I learned a lot, and he was good to me. So.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm glad that he was good to you, and that gave you an opportunity to learn some entrepreneurial type thinking and skills and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So that's great. Catherine, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How can people find you?
Thank you. So the best place to find me is my website, which is extrabold, BOLD, sales.com. I have a tab that's called Free Stuff, and I have all kinds of articles about common mistakes that people make, concerns, apprehensions, stories we tell ourselves, things that we do that keep us from selling as much as we could. So visit my website and the free tab section, and I just have all kinds of resources out there for the general public. So that's the best way.
That's great. Very generous. Thank you. This is Shawn Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas on boosting employee engagement, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. Once again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. Thanks so much for joining us and for watching and viewing and listening. Have a great day.